Alright, hi, my name's Andrew, and I'm going to go over the various terms that you need to understand in networking so we can properly discuss why GTA 5 has not been 100% since October 1st. The first thing you need to know is IP addresses. So on your network, you have a router, right? So let me get paint up here. On your network, you have a router, right? And this is your router, and then pretty much this is the internet. These are all the outside peers on the internet. And then from here, you have your computers. So this could be your mom's. This over here could be your mom's. This could be yours, Lucas, and this could be um, your dad's. It doesn't matter, right? So what happens is your router assigns an IP address, right? And it doesn't matter if this is wireless or if this is connection, your router just assigns your computer an IP address. This IP address, right? So, for example, you might see something like 192.168.1.1, right? So this IP address is non-routable, right? It cannot go into the internet. So over here would be internet, right? It cannot go onto the internet. It's a non-routable IP address. It's not recognized um, on the internet, right? So what happens is this IP address goes to something called network address translation. So you'll see something called NAT, and basically what that means is that this IP address is going to be turned into something that can be read on the internet by other routers and other computers as well, right? So for example, something like 72 dot whatever is a routable IP address, right? The reason I'm saying that you need to know this is because these routable IP addresses over here, so this guy, right? He requires money to pay. You pay your ISP, your internet service provider, for example, Telus or Coachco. You pay them money to get a public IP address, right? So that's going to be your router, right? And it could be D-Link, whatever. And so you need to pay for this. But not only do you need to pay for it, other companies need to pay for it, right? So let's say over here we have Rockstar, right? And let's say they're hosting servers, right? Let's say they're hosting 3 servers on the internet. In order for your routable IP address to connect with these servers, they all need their own table of routable IP addresses. So they may have 108.1.40.2. And then the next one will have 108.1.40.3. And then it'll go through all the same thing, right? So this will be going in and out. The reason why it can't go through a similar process as the router, or maybe it goes through something more sophisticated as a router, is because it's sending information in and out through a public IP address, right? When people are sending information to you, they're not necessarily aware that they're sending information to you. They're pretty much sending information to your router, and then your router is reading the packet and then redirecting that information to your computer, right? And same thing's pretty much going to happen to the Rockstar servers, right? Whatever. Alright, so these are all the Rockstar servers, right? Now, getting just one IP address onto the internet takes money, right? We all pay a certain amount of money. So what happens is companies will rent out a certain portion of an IP address and sell it to their customers, right? So, for example, you may have a company because 0 to 191 or 0 to 60, company might pay out something like that. So they may pay out 7.1.0 to 60 dot whatever. It doesn't matter, right? They paid for 0 to 60, and whatever else comes afterwards is their IP address, right? Let's just here. Let's fill this in. Blah blah blah. New. We'll save. Okay. So when we're getting into IP addresses, you have something. You have a limit to the amount of IP addresses you can have. So you have, you can only have. It's an expansion of 2 pretty much. So you have like 2 to the power of 7, and then you have 2 to the power of 6 and stuff like that. Like, it's pretty much, there's a limit to how many IP addresses you can have onto a network, and there's also a limit to how many hosts you can have on a network, right? So I'm not going to go through that right now because it's going to take way too damn long, but you can figure it out if you're genuinely interested. It's a pretty cool concept, but it's also kind of frustrating. And they've actually come out with a new method to generating IP addresses that doesn't leave as much space for unused IP addresses. So it makes it more efficient. I don't know the method right now. I just know the archaic one where you go in increments of power by 2. So 2 to the power 3 minus 1 will be your host, and then whatever else the rest in the bits in the 8-bit will be your networking portion. So we're going to get into virtualization, and virtualization is a huge thing, especially in this computing world. It is now ever expanding, and it's pretty awesome. So the basics of virtualization is you have a computer, right? And this is your hardware, right? So you'll have like a keyboard, mouse, here's your monitor, right? And on there, let's say you install Windows 7, right? And let's say you usually have Windows 7. And then you run your programs and stuff like that. So what will happen is you can run another instance of Windows 7 or Windows 98. You can run another operating system within your computer. Right? It's pretty cool. It'll actually show up as like a little program similar to Paint, right? And you have to close, minimize, whatever. File options, and then you'll just launch an image or an image file from your computer, and then it'll run it just like a secondary operating system. Exactly. You'll have the start menu, launch, whatever. The reason why this is so important is because this separates the necessity of a hardware to support the operating system. So you'll have something like a computer, and then you'll have something called a hypervisor, which is like a software utility that you install on your computer, and then you'll have the OS. So you have like PC, VirtualBox is one of them, and then you have OS, right? What you can do with these is you can actually create a server, a virtual server, using this steps, right? You can create a server even just by, let's say you have, Windows Server 2008, right? And you're running a server on your virtual laptop or your virtual desktop environment, right? And then you're trying to access it via Windows 7. You can do that as long as you have a static IP. You can do that. A static IP is a IP that doesn't change. So you may notice that sometimes when you're connecting to your Xbox or PC, your IP address will change. So say, yesterday it was 192.1.168.2, and now today it's 192.1.168. 8.12 or 14 or doesn't matter, 1. It could be anything, right? Your router acts as a DHCP or dynamic host control protocol and manages the amount of available IP addresses within your network, right? Static allows it so that none of this information ever changes, right? So when you're accessing a server, you don't have to worry about an ever-changing an IP address. You only have to worry about your computer's IP address and not the server's, which is pretty neat. So stuff like printers, you don't want to change for static IP because it has to be accessed by everybody. Something like that can't be changed. Something like a VoIP, voice over IP, telephone can't have not a dynamic IP because it has to be accessed by everybody. So it's a pretty important and pretty progressive way of thinking when it comes to setting up IP addresses within your house, and you can create safe environments for that as well. So let's say now we're going to get to Rockstar's thing. Rockstar is going to have a server, right? They're going to have multiple servers, right? Let's say this is the rack, right? And then you have servers in here. And in one of these servers, it's going to have 1 gigabit of RAM, 1 gigabit, 100 gigabytes of storage, space,